Okay, folks, it is 6:30. I'm calling this meeting of the Champaign County Board to order at 6:30. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dorsland.
Here.
Vantage Theronaut.
Here.
Wilson. Here. Carter.
Here.
Cowart. Esri.
Here.
Farney.
Here.
Furtado. Hanauer Friedman.
Here.
Ingram.
Here.
Locke.
Here.
Lockshin.
Here.
Michaels.
Present.
Pugh. Rodriguez.
Here.
Rogers.
Present.
Sexton. Smith. Storr.
Present.
Straub.
Yes.
Taylor.
Here.
Patterson.
Here.
We have a quorum. I'm going to now read the prayer. Let us take time to pause and acknowledge this special season of harvest and its traditions of sharing with those less fortunate. Let us take time to notice the labor of others from farm to table that culminates in 2 days. Let us pause to recognize how fortunate we are and to be grateful for the bounty we share with friends, family, and loved ones, be they with us or far away. Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Will the clerk please read the notice of the meeting?
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois, will convene on November 21st, 2023, 6:30 p.m. in the Shields Carter Meeting Room, Brookins Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purpose of allowing and ordering payments of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees, and such other matters as may be brought before said meeting, which said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Okay. Lockshin, second, second Mike Smith. All in favor, please signify by, Diane.
Yes, sir. I would like to make a motion that we move item 8D, the resolution honoring retired county board member Jim Goss, up on the agenda. I believe that would go right under 10 after the approval of minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Assuming that's a friendly amendment, so the agenda is amended. We'll move Mr. Goss's resolution to that part. Thank you. Now can I have a approval of the agenda in its entirety? All signify by saying aye, please. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. The next regularly scheduled meetings are listed on the agenda. Next is public participation. If there are any members of the public that wish to address the board, please fill out a form by the door and return it to me. The first slip I have is from Sandra Otten.
talk to, there we go, to Sheriff Harmon about the jail phone issues. I'm so happy that he's going to talk about it tonight, and that indeed the inmates are going to have 2 free phone calls a day from the jail. And a lot of work and thought went into it for the sheriff, for his staff, for meeting with Stephanie and Jennifer Straub. And we just really appreciate that you took the time to be really so considerate, Steve as well. To think about the long-term consequences of making sure that the jail phone services were affordable for everyone by having the 2 free phone calls a day, by reducing the cost of the phone calls that are past the 2 a day. They're only going to be 5 cents a minute, and then the video calls being reduced as well. So all in all, just like seriously, thank you all for any kind of input that you did, and especially thank you for the sheriff for taking the time to meet with us, and also just to make the amendment that he made to the request for proposal a couple of different times. I know a lot of effort went into it, and it's really a great thing for the underserved, for the underprivileged, the family members who have folks in the county jail. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Jim Goss.
Good evening. Jim Goss, Muhammad. As you can only imagine, I was infuriated when I watched the Cal meeting last week. Since when did Champaign County become such a communist establishment? Because the actions taken last week reeked of Marxist tactics. When did Champaign County Democrat Party become more enamored with big business than taking care of the people of Champaign County? Are you so vain that you can't understand why the ZBA members voted as their constituents wanted? They listened to hours of testimony, and not one person offered testimony supporting these new rules. The vote at ZBA was hard for the members. I agree, but their vote was in support of the people who did not want this kind of tyranny. In the end, as always, you now have the hard vote. You have a recent history of overturning the ZBA, as you did in the Homer Solar Farm, which you know I was against. The ZBA's job is to protect farmland and the people in the rural areas of the county. That's what they did, their job. By the way, they had been working on a compromise to the update to the wind ordinance. However, green energy companies and their lobbyists didn't like the fact that the board members all across the state were trying to protect their neighbors and constituents. So when they pushed the bill that created this public act that you should vote against this evening, the green energy lobby bought and paid for the legislatures to pile on this bunk. Why was it passed in the dead of night in the lame duck session? Why was there little debate? Simply because the state legislators didn't want to hear or take grief from the people. They'd already cashed their checks. Why do we need this act in the first place? The legislature just passed in the veto session the use of the ultimate green energy, small nuclear. Oh, that's right. The wind and solar lobbyists paid for the shell of an act that protects their big business, not the people of the state of Illinois. Before you get on your pedestals later this evening and bloviate how you don't want the cost to cost the taxpayers money, I want you to remember that you cost the taxpayers of this county $25 million on a failed nursing home. Yes, I haven't forgotten how that dinosaur across the parking lot nearly bankrupted this county. What never gets reported is how much your parties cost the taxpayers fighting the lawsuit against Carl for the last 11 years. While many taxing bodies settled the lawsuit, you just kept wasting taxpayer money. Money that's hidden in the state's attorney's budget under personnel. Why did the state's attorney need to hire another attorney in the office? Because we can't turn loose one person who's spent 11 years fighting a losing battle. So before you talk about getting sued by the state and how that will cost the taxpayers money, remember, it's really the one thing you guys are really good at, wasting taxpayer dollars. I really hope that your grandchildren do not go hungry in 35 years because you chose to bend a knee to a trust fund baby in the big city liberal legislators whose agenda was to allow the government to cover up the best farmland in the world. I doubt that these farmers' grandchildren that you will harm with this nonsense will have a sympathetic heart. You see, when these people, when you try to destroy their life's work, they take it personal. We don't forgive and we won't forget. As you sit down to a Thanksgiving meal this week provided by many of those same farmers, imagine a future where those farmers enjoy the food that they produce and people like many of you enjoy your meal of ground insects. They aren't making any more land, so you should protect as much of this as humanly possible. Please vote no.
Thank you. Ted Hartke.
So go ahead. Good evening, guys. My name's Ted Harkey. I've been pressuring this board to not put through and force through an anti-property rights action here tonight. The statewide wind ordinance, you know, it was done in the last second deal in the middle of the night, pushed through by the Democratic leaders, okay? And it didn't go through the right protocols. It didn't go through hearings like it should have. I didn't have a chance to go to Springfield and tell them what happened to me, so they didn't get any input from the little guy like that. This afternoon, I printed out a little bit of constitutional stuff. This is from the Cato Foundation. It's a pro-government U.S. constitutional group, and they had here a handbook for policymakers. And there's some items in here I wanted to point out. It says that you need to treat property taken through regulation the same way as you treat property taken through physical seizure. If you guys pass this setback rules and the overage noise level, that's a regulatory capture of our land where we should be building houses and enjoying all of our land. The Constitution protects property rights through the 5th and 14th Amendment. Last time I checked, the Constitution overrides any state rules. And directly through the 5th Amendment's takings clause, you're not allowed to take private property for public use without just compensation. The folks who are going to be living next to a wind turbine and can't sleep in their home because of the noise level, and also if a setback for a turbine is too close to a home site that just doesn't have a home on it yet, that piece of land is not going to be rendered usable as a home site. That's a clear taking of land for its use. So there's two ways government can take property currently. You can take it outright by condemning it and taking the title, meaning you get the whole thing and the property owner gets paid. Or also, number two, you can take it through regulations that takes away the use of the land. Then the owner is left with the title, and he owns the title for it, but he no longer has the power and the enjoyment and the use of it. If a government takes over land, either permanently or temporarily, when your regulation is for anything besides health and safety, and it can take nearly all of the value of the property. If a property is taken and no longer it can be used and enjoyed. The U.S. Constitution says your property ownership rights is for all of the ownership rights. You're allowed to acquire it, you're allowed to enjoyment, you're allowed to dispose of it. And if that's not legally protected, that's against the law. I see I have a minute left. The individual that spoke before me talked about communism and stuff. In Germany, when Hitler was running the show, it was perfectly legal and policy to gather up the Jews, put them in the ghettos, and then they gathered them up out of the ghettos and they put them on trains, okay? This is an extreme part of a heavy-handed leader pushing down something that a small group, being our zoning board, the ZBA, they realized that was wrong. The ZBA sucked it up and had a spine, and the ZBA said, this is wrong, this is heavy-handed. We're going to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our rural residents. That's our job. So that board did their job. It wasn't their job to punish rural residents with the heavy-handed policy that came from Springfield or Chicago. Please don't just automatically replace board members who buck the trend of the state government.
Thank you, Mr. Hartke.
Thank you for your time this evening. Have a good night.
I believe it's Larry Franks. Welcome.
My name is L.R. Franks, and I am the mayor of Philo, Illinois, one of the last holdouts on our letter to you guys. And I'm just mystified about what went down last Tuesday. You took a person out of our area that represents Philo and voted him off because he didn't agree. To me, trust means a lot. What these gentlemen said, it doesn't even cut. How is Philo going to trust anything the county board wants to do? I was appalled when someone over there at that meeting said it didn't really matter to them because they're not in that area. I'm not doing anything. The financial deal, you were worried about the financial deal. I can count on one finger, no fingers, that Philo's got any money out of the county board. But we have these gentlemen that represent us, Philo, and you voted them out. I've been on the board for 28 years at Philo. I've been the mayor of Philo for 10 years. I have a zoning board. My zoning board comes to us with their opinion, and there's been several times that my board has rejected them and went the other way. But they didn't vote them off because they didn't agree to what you said. I mean, come on, we're part of the county. You people forget that these small areas down here, it means a lot. I just hope that you realize this when you vote, that you're voting for someone, Philo. Half of you probably haven't even been to the center of the universe, and we pull the chain just like everybody else. So I appreciate a no vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan Elbow.
Good evening, all. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak. Esteemed members of Champaign County Board, as a resident deeply involved in community affairs and honored to be the chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals, I feel compelled to address recent discussions that have stirred concern within our community. The decision to remove 3 incumbents from the Zoning Board of Appeals raises significant apprehensions. These individuals bring a wealth of expertise, knowledge, and a deep understanding of our community. Their removal could result in a substantial loss for our community. It's crucial to recognize that this decision might inadvertently deprive us of invaluable expertise and insight gained over years of dedicated service. There's a concerning perception among the residents that this is purely political in nature. This perception is a grave misunderstanding. It is a mistake to view these changes through a solely political lens. The individuals in question have demonstrated a commitment to a well-being of our community, and that removal risks losing their valuable contributions. Moreover, the potential ramifications of this decision could impact the depth and expertise in critical areas such as zoning, property rights, and development. The incoming replacements might lack the depth of knowledge and experience crucial for making informed decisions in matters that significantly impact our county's future. I have the privilege of working closely with the incumbents, and I can personally attest to their dedication, expertise, and genuine concern to our county's welfare. Their removal may lead to an unfortunate void in the board, leaving us with fewer individuals possessing the depth and understanding and expertise required to address the intricate issues that face our community. The perception of political motives behind these changes is worrying. It's crucial to reiterate that decisions made in local governance should prioritize the betterment of our community, of our county, of Champaign County, than transcending political agendas. The removal of these individuals could inadvertently undermine the stability and the effectiveness of the zoning board. As a resident and the chair of the ZBA, I urge thoughtful consideration and reconsideration of this decision. Let us not overlook the expertise and dedication these individuals offer to our community. In conclusion, I implore this esteemed board to reconsider the decision to preserve the valuable expertise and commitment to these incumbents, what they bring to the table. Let us prioritize the welfare of Champaign County residents over perceived political considerations. I do have a couple minutes left. I do want to address some of the statements that were said to, like from the board from last meeting. First off, we have never said, nor would I ever allow any of the board to say that we would not enforce what the ordinance says. And there was a comment made at, I believe it was 50 minutes and 37 seconds about how we would not allow wind farms to come into our county. That is absolutely false. We take every case, we approach it in the same manner. We do it judiciously. And the three individuals that you have decided to not ask to come back, we as Champaign County residents are losing. And you know, like there's nothing that I can say tonight that's going to change your decision. But thank you for the opportunity for me to be able to come and speak before this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Next is Josh Kammerer.
Good evening. My name is Josh Kammerer. I live in Crittenden Township, which is located south of Philo. I'd like to start out by saying I disagree with the claim against the current ZBA that they did not do their job that they were appointed to do. For many months, and many more months, they listened to testimony from concerned citizens, answered questions the best they could, and they did the best they can with the situation they were given. With this, they responded with respect and due diligence to submit reasonable recommendations that reflected the testimony and concerns of the citizens that they listened to. Those were presented to the ELUC board, and just because the recommendations that they presented may not have lined up with the agenda of some of the committee members does not mean that they did not complete their job. More concerning to me is the willingness of some of the board members to hand over county control to the state and foolishly think that the state won't continue to take advantage of that. If anyone needs to be replaced, in my opinion, it's the board members. As far as the wind farms go, this harvest, I drove a semi through the Douglas County wind farm, and I would like to commend any school bus driver that's willing to take the risk and the responsibility of driving a bus down those roads. For context, this is my 25th harvest driving a semi, and not once did I feel very comfortable on those roads. And those drivers do it 5 days a week throughout the entire school year. On top of that, the noise and the shadow flicker, also, they're unpleasant to work around. When I'm fueling up a combine with a generator running and all I can hear is a helicopter flying above my head that's not there, it's very unnerving. And at this time, I would like to just ask you to think and do your due diligence and vote no. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank the committee members and the board members that have listened to all the hours of testimony and answered the questions, listened to the concerns, to represent that are sympathetic to us and represent the small towns. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca Kammerer.
Hi, I'm Dr. Rebecca Kammerer. I live in Philo in southern Champaign County. I'm here to speak about the ZBA changes and about the wind ordinance. Plain and simple, in my opinion, the ZBA members did their duty. While members of this board may not agree with their recommendations, it should not be grounds for their removal. Because let's be honest, that's what you all are trying to do. I'm sure the other 4 members will be on the chopping block when their time for a reappointment comes. Why would they want to stay? I mean, I watched the joint meeting between ZBA and ELUC where the ZBA members were scolded like petulant children by Mr. Thorsland. I give them props. Were I in their shoes, I would have walked out after 5 minutes of that unprofessional behavior. Frankly, it's very concerning that the members of this board and the county executive are working behind the scenes to dismantle the ZBA, a committee that finally had all of its seats filled, especially when there are departments that have struggled to fulfill their duties for years. I can tell you from personal experience that the animal control department in this county is an embarrassment. I brought this to the attention of the current county executive almost a year ago. Right now, they have several months worth of my checks, worth over $2,000, that have not been cashed. An officer is supposed to come to the office to pick up paperwork and money. It'll be months between visits. This has gone on for years. Nothing has changed in the last 12 months. I never received my full payment for last year, and I'm hoping I will receive something this year. Maybe the board should concern itself with problems in its current operations. It is clear that certain members on this board have been laser focused on paving the way for wind energy to come in. Several of us have attended ZBA and ELUC meetings, voicing our concerns over the wind ordinances for close to 2 years now, well before the governor signed the bill taking away counties' rights to individual ordinances. A bill he promised he would not sign, by the way. Through all those meetings, it has been clear that there are board members who are on the wind company's side. It is extremely concerning to me that anyone on this board is taking the side of an outside company's interest over that of its own residents. It seems people on this board and ELUC have forgotten your roles. You are not major stockholders who sit on the board of some Fortune 500 company. You don't get to unilaterally decide the direction of this county. Every resident has a voice in every decision. Please stop ignoring us. No one addresses any of our concerns or answers our questions. Member Furtado is worried about finances if the state files a lawsuit against the county. I would like to know how much money is the county planning on budgeting to police the construction projects that you are going to allow, to protect our homes, to keep them from ruining our roads, holding them accountable when farmers end up with damaged equipment from huge sinkholes in their fields. You think you have power, but when and if that time comes, you will have zero authority to hold these companies accountable. And it'll be residents like me and my neighbors that will suffer. Please vote no.
Thank you. Next, Nolan Herbert.
Hello. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nolan Herbert. I'm a rural Champaign County farmer and a current sitting member on the Champaign County Zoning Board of Appeals. At tonight's meeting, this county board will determine if myself and 2 other sitting ZBA members will be replaced based on the way that we voted. Our votes are recommendations, not requirements. So to be replaced for doing our jobs and for voting in favor of what we believe is right and is best for rural Champaign County is wrong. I stand behind my vote against allowing the state to deem what is best for our county. The ZBA board of 7 members unanimously voted a recommendation of denial to update our wind and solar ordinance to be compliant with the state because we are rural land community members and we not only voted following our own conscience, but also that of the people we represent. The decision of denial was not one that was reached lightly. The topic of solar wind farms was the primary focus of multiple ZBA meetings. We sat through hours of public testimony and did our due diligence by researching on our own and speaking with individuals who have been directly impacted by the placement of wind farms. These members of our community stepped up at each meeting to share their thoughts and concerns. In my opinion, the new state regulations provide no protection to rural communities and do nothing to ease the concerns of rural landowners. That is the reason that I voted the way I did. And if I had voted according to party lines or buckled under political pressure, that would not have been doing my job. According to the Champaign County Zoning Ordinance Handbook, Section 2, titled Purpose, I did my job. Item B, conserving the value of land, buildings, and structures throughout the county. Item E, promoting the public health, safety, comfort, morals, and general welfare. F, regulating and limiting the height and bulk of buildings and structures. G, establishing, regulating, and limiting the building of setback lines on or along any street. H, regulating and limiting the intensity of the use of lot areas and regulating and determining the area on open spaces within surrounding buildings and structures. L, prohibiting uses, buildings, or structures incompatible with the character of such districts. And the most important, protecting the most productive agricultural lands from haphazard and unplanned intrusions from urban uses. And Q, encouraging the preservation of agricultural belts surrounding urban areas to retain the agricultural nature of the county and the individual character of existing communities, and provide the safe and efficient development of renewable energy sources in those parts of the county where most suited for their development. Prime farmland is not. According to this handbook, given to me by Champaign County, I did my job. Voting to replace me on the accusation that I did not do my job is wrong. This vote looks bad for Champaign County, and it gives off the strong stench of dirty politics. Replacing board members because of the way they voted goes against the entire democratic system. If this vote passes, it sets a precedent that all appointed board members throughout the county better vote the way they are told or prepare to be replaced. If this is how our county board is going to be operated, why even have a zoning board or any other appointed board for that matter?
Thank you, Mr. Herbert. Justin Learcamp.
Good evening. I'm going to read from the petition that's getting passed down. I am a resident of Champaign County, deeply concerned about the recent replacement of our Zoning Board of Appeals members. These individuals were not just public service, they were our voice. They listened to us and acted accordingly, making decisions that reflected our community's needs and desires. These decisions to replace them is unjust and determined that the democratic process that we value so much in our country. The zoning board plays a crucial role in shaping the future development and preservation efforts in Champaign County. While wind and solar zoning has been the most recent large issues, these board members have spent countless hours hearing other cases over the years, providing a crucial service to the rural residents of Champaign County. We believe that replacing these members with political motivation disrupts the continuity, disregards the experience, and could potentially lead to decisions that do not reflect what we as residents want for our county. We urge you to reconsider this decision. Let's uphold democracy by ensuring those serving on the Zoning Board of Appeals over the years are not the whims of political motivations of the county board, but are providing fair review of zoning cases. Please sign this petition if you support justice, transparency, and your right as a citizen to be heard through your elected officials. This is a petition that I circulated. I got like 176 signatures. There were some that came in after I printed this off. I know 176 people is maybe not a lot to some of you that could walk down your streets in your neighborhoods and get a few hundred signatures in a matter of hours. But for us rural citizens, there's just not as many of us. I am deeply concerned about these zoning board appointments. In one action, you're going to be replacing 12 years of cumulative experience. That kind of turnover in a board is never good. This replacement of the incumbent ZBA board members is telling the rural public, the minority voter in this county now, the ones who have showed up to the public meetings, that their voice doesn't matter. I have watched many people who are uncomfortable with public speaking take their turn at the ZBA hearings over the last 2 years. They didn't like doing it. They didn't like going to these meetings, but they did it because it mattered, and it mattered to them and to their families. They were the only ones showing up. You cannot fault the ZBA board for listening to them, the hours and hours of testimony. They heard from residents, they heard from farmers, they heard from commercial crop dusting pilots, they heard from realtors, they heard from neighboring county board members, they heard from Ted Harkey, somebody who knows more about wind than anybody else I've ever met. You cannot replace these ZBA board members. You should not replace these ZBA board members for listening to them. That is their job. They did it. You're replacing them for doing their job. In last week's committee of the whole meeting, there was a lot of talk about not spending the county's money on litigation. Mr. Summers and I had that discussion this morning. And this county has spent money on litigation before. So I would say that most people in this room do not agree with what the state has done. And so why is one cause just to spend money on litigation and another is not? I don't understand that justification. In closing, I would like to read from the Champaign County's website in the description of the county executive's duties. It says, as an elected official, the county executive represents the people of the county and solicits public input on the county's business. Mr. Executive, here's your input. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Susan Mantell.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Susan Mantell. I grew up in Philo and I live in Sydney. First, I'd like to say thank you to all the ZBA members that heard the voice of the rural citizens of Illinois. As a rural citizen of Illinois, I oppose the overreach of the state of Illinois in the decisions made regarding its citizens. Rural citizens deserve the ability to determine whether and where windmills will be placed in relation to their property and specifically their domicile. We don't even know the physical and physiologic consequences of these turbines over the years. We don't know what's going to happen to the people that live next to them because we don't have the data to support that knowledge. So if we're going to be a science-based world, we need to wait to have more data before we put windmills next to people's houses. I'm appalled as a physician. I'm appalled that anyone would consider even placing a windmill or a turbine that close to a person's house. There are considerations that the state made that put these windmills way closer than even the manufacturers recommend. It's your job as the county board to hear our voice and to support what we recommend to you. You work for us, we don't work for you. So I am asking you to vote no and to not take our ZBA members off of the ZBA, the board. We deserve to have our voice heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Stan Harper.
Hello, everyone. Stan Harper, Ogden, Illinois. I'm sure just proud as hell to see me. First of all, everybody stand up, please. Please, really, stand up. Stand up. Shake hands, pat your hat, pat your backs, because you just stepped on every rural resident of this county. I hope you're damn proud of that. I was informed about this a little over a week ago. Some of you heard me talk this morning at the Farm Bureau meeting. Aaron Ezra and I went to almost every one of those. Aaron probably went to more than I did. The wind farm, the solar farm in Sydney. And I voted what the constituents wanted on a 7-0 vote. And it was brought before this ELUC committee before the state came down with their ruling and took no action. That's gutless. Absolutely gutless. I'm not as smooth as some of these other people. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. I took multiple calls from constituents in that area. That was Aaron and I's district. Not one person wanted this. Not one. And as I said this morning at Farm Bureau, in a World Food Research Project, they're talking about this country having over 350 million people in it by 2050. And their concern is, will the American farmer have the ability to feed these people? I brought this up to ELUC committee back then. Prime farm ground. Last Tuesday, I made a trip to Blue Mountain, Illinois, southwest of Decatur. Went to Tuscola, other than crap sitting there north of Newman. Not one wind farm, solar farm, across some of the best farm ground you will ever see. Went across Douglas County, Macon County, Moultrie County, and into Christian County. Not one. And we want to bow down to this bunch? As it's been brought up. And I listened to some of the meeting from last Tuesday. Well, we got to be in compliance with the state. No, this is a fight that needs to be fought. We talk about lawsuits. Hell, we had a lawsuit to see who in the hell on this board could make committee recommendations. Was that way good spending of money? No. So anyway, I agree with everybody back here that spoke. They've done a tremendous job, a hell of a lot better than I do. But please, think about the rural part of this county. Did anybody sitting here, other than Aaron and I, go to any of these testimonial meetings? Not one. Okay, Chris, I didn't see you. Sorry about that. Did you hear anybody talk about wanting this? Back a number of years ago when we had the Sydney deal, nobody wanted it. I did have 3 calls of people that were in favor of the solar farm. They were absentee landlords. They didn't live down there. I mean, are we going to bow down? Yes, I farm. I will protect my farm ground as much as I possibly can, but I just hope that we vote no on these issues. There were good people that didn't get paid to sit there and listen to all this testimonial, and it's time we stood up for the rural part of this county. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Excuse me, is it Ryan Henning? I'm sorry. Roger Henning. Thank you.
I want to thank the current ZBA for all their time and effort concerning the wind farm ordinance. I was pleased to see them hold to their opinion and views and not roll over by pressure from ELUC, unlike certain people currently on our county board and ELUC committee. We need to think about the precedents we are setting, because who knows what rule or law JB will try to pass and impose on any county board south of Cook County next. If we roll over now, we are setting a trend of things to come. Concerning this new ordinance, I would also like to know how anyone on any committee or board believes that setbacks should be established from a resident's dwelling. Setbacks for structures are established from property lines, not from dwellings. If the setbacks are not what somebody wants, or somebody wants to build something closer, don't they go to a board, ZBA, to get approval or variance? I don't see why we have to make special conditions and a blanket thing for the wind farms to come from a dwelling. It should be from a property line. In closing, I'm curious why people on ZBA are being replaced even though they did not want to step down. I believe one spot on ZBA was vacant for 2 years. Seems to me like if you don't need a ZBA anyway, because if you don't like what they vote, you replace them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. David Happ.
Hello, my name is David Happ. I also live in Philo, and I'm opposed to the proposed zoning changes regarding wind and solar farms. I've been coming to the ZBA and ELUC meetings for the past 2 years just to hear all the discussion about this topic. Even when it became apparent that things weren't necessarily going to go like I hoped, I kept attending. I've been a public servant myself for almost 25 years. I like to watch government work. I respect the process, and I wanted to show support for the others who feel so strongly about this issue. Earlier this month, John Hall and Steve Summers attended the Philo Village Board meeting. This was a chance for them to explain to the village board why it might be a good idea for us to rescind our letter protesting the zoning changes. Mr. Hall didn't even stay for all of the public comment. When it became apparent that the board was not going to rescind their letter, he left the meeting. Mr. Summers did stick around, but I think that had more to do with other business on the agenda than wanting to hear public comment about wind farms and the proposed zoning changes. The board was definitely left with the impression that our input from Philo didn't matter one bit. At the time of our Philo board meeting, I wasn't even aware of the decision not to reappoint the 3 ZBA members, But knowing that now just reaffirms my opinion that Philo should not rescind their objection letter. It's just another example of the disrespect that some county officials have shown for the people in the rural districts. Personally, it makes me want to suggest to the Philo Village Board that we object to every single thing that Philo has ever given the opportunity to weigh in on. Object to every county zoning change, every waiver request, everything, no matter whether it affects Philo or not, just to trigger the supermajority requirement and make things more difficult for the county board. Apparently, that is what it takes for the rural districts to get the attention of county officials. Of course, we won't do that because that's not the spirit of the law. But you know what else isn't in the spirit of the law? Replacing 3 ZBA members who spend a lot of time hearing testimony and really studying an issue just because you don't agree with them. I respect the process when it's done right. I ask that the county board also respect the process and reconsider replacing the 3 ZBA members and to not pass the proposed wind and solar farm zoning changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Darrell Rice.
Good evening. My name's Darrell Rice. My wife and I live in Sidney Township, live and farm there. I appreciate the chance to speak with you just briefly this evening. We can see 2 wind farms from our farm. We can see the one in northern Champaign County and also the one in Douglas County. And in February 22, we had a wind company come by our farm and, and make us an offer in order to put one right across where we are in southern Champaign County, across Philo and Sidney and over into Homer in that area. And then about a month ago, I had a different company come through, and you might have read about that one in the News Gazette last week. So this is a real thing in our community and in our neighborhood. Later that spring in 2022, just a year ago last spring, the ZBA started discussing the proposed text amendment to the wind ordinance changes. And there were a couple vacant seats on the board at that time, and this Nolan Herbert behind me here, he took one of those seats, and I remember him showing up. It was during these meetings of discussion, and he had a stack of paper on his desk for him. It was about 2-3 inches thick, and I thought, man, that guy, he didn't know what he was getting into. But anyway, he waded into that stuff, and read through that, he and the other board members, and they did a really good job listening to the residents of southern Champaign County and the concerns that we had. For several months in a row, we had extra chairs set up back here. All these seats were filled, plus an extra row or 2 of chairs along that wall. There was at least 75 people here from southern Champaign County to voice their concerns about the proposed text amendment changes. And not one person, for several months, not one person was here to speak in favor of the wind farms, not one. And after several months, finally, there were some wind farm representatives that came, and they did speak in favor. But all of the residents came to voice their concerns and their opposition. I don't know, as of this date, I don't know of any farmer, landowner who has signed a lease with one of these wind companies down in our neighborhood, even though they've been beating the bushes. If the wind farm does go through, it will be because of absentee landowners, not residents, not the people that live there, because most of the land is owned by people that don't live there. We just farm it. And so you have people that don't live there making the decisions for the people that do live there. The ZBA, I felt they did the job that they were appointed to do. They came here month after month and listened to the concerns of the residents of Champaign County, and then they made their decisions accordingly. And for these reasons, I'm opposed to the replacement of these board members. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Is there any other person in the audience that would like to address the board? Seeing none, I'm going to end public participation. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? Kyle, you're very fast. Kyle, and then Locke with the second. We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll? Oh, I am sorry, folks. I apologize. We had amended the agenda, and we need to move instead on to what would have been.
Mr. Summers,
sorry.
could we just have a short recess to use the facilities, things like that?
Sure.
That's the request.
Let's do 5 minutes. Sure. Thank you. We will be recessed for 5 minutes and then return.
Right? Yeah.
All right, folks, we are back in session. Sorry for any confusion on my part. We had a motion and a second for the consent agenda. I'm trying to recall, did we actually vote on the consent agenda? We did not. All right. Would the clerk please call the roll for this vote?
Thorsland.
Yes.
Vanich Theorenot.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Esri.
Yes.
Varney.
Yes.
Furtado. Hanauer Friedman.
Yes.
Ingram.
Yes.
Locke.
Yes.
Lockshin.
Yes.
Michaels. Pugh.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Sexton. Smith. Storr. Straub.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Patterson.
Motion passes. Are there any communications from the board? Go ahead, Mr. Farney.
First, did some lights turn off in the room? I just noticed that. I'd like to take a moment to recognize the accomplishments of some tremendous high school student athletes from Champaign County who competed in the Illinois High School Association Cross Country Championships held November 4th at Detweiler Park in Peoria. In Class 2A girls cross country, Champaign Centennial High School qualified as a team, and they finished 14th in state. There were individuals qualifying for the state meet, including Ava Boyd and Taylor Mills, both of Mahomet Seymour High School, Abigail Fairbanks and Marley Yao, both of Urbana High School, and Allegra Garrison of Champaign Central High School. They all qualified as individuals. In Class 2A boys cross country, there were 3 individual qualifiers from Champaign County. Caleb Mathias of Champaign Central High School was an all-stater. He finished 16th. Also qualifying for the state meet were Augustus Gaudio of Mahomet Seymour and Hudson Cody of Urbana. In the Class 1A girls cross country meet, and I'm sorry, I know every one of these kids.
It's okay.
And half of Philo's here to see me do this. Fantastic. In Class 1A girls cross country, there were 2 county high schools that qualified teams for the meet. Unity High School was crowned state champion for the 3rd season in a row. That's why I've got my Unity shirt on tonight. Their 5th championship in the last 9 years. The Rockets had 2 all-state athletes, Mackenzie Pound and Erica Woodard. They both finished in the top 25. St. Thomas More High School also qualified as a team, and they finished 24th in the state. 2 athletes qualified as individuals for the state meet, Chloe Burkhalter and Savannah Franzen, both of St. Joe Ogden. Boy, it's hard for me to say that. In Class 1A boys cross country, 2 county high schools qualified teams for the meet. The Spartans of St. Joe Ogden finished 6th in the state. The Spartans had 2 all-state athletes who have been tremendous mentors. God dang it, John. Who have been tremendous mentors to my son. Carson Maroon finished 9th overall, and Aiden Armstrong finished 22nd. Unity High School also qualified a team for state, and they finished 25th in the state. And one of my former Cub Scouts, Clark Rowland of Heritage High School, finished as a state qualifier. So District 3 was well represented, to say the least, and I love each and every one of these kids, and I know them well, and they are tremendous role models for everyone in Champaign County. All of these athletes run throughout the heat of summer and throughout the fall, and many run over 1,000 miles between June and October. It's something I could never do, and it's an honor to recognize their accomplishments, and I promise I'm not going to do this again.
Thank you, JJ. Go ahead, Jenny.
I just want to add one in. Josh Hooper from Centennial also qualified as an individual runner. He's a senior this year, and he's been a great mentor for my son. So, yes, congratulations to all those runners. Thank you.
Eric.
Thursday's Thanksgiving. Most people celebrate some sort of gathering of family and things on Thanksgiving. You can eat a lot of food. You're going to sit down in front of the TV, watch the Bears lose, and be thankful that one day of year for everything you have and all your family and your connections. And remember, at that same time, somebody's out on the street, doesn't have any food, doesn't have anything to eat, doesn't have a place to sleep that night. And that's 365 nights a year. We do what we can. We've done a lot more with the ARPA money to try to help that, but it's a persistent problem in Champaign County. We have some people here that know more about this than me and do all kinds of heroic things to do that. So I want everybody to think about that, not just on Thanksgiving, but every day of the year. We're a county as a whole. We've had a lot of talk about unity and representing everyone in Champaign County tonight. We have residents that are residents, but they don't have a place to live. So let's remember that also on Thanksgiving.
Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. This is a short piece from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. It's called Why Holocaust Analogies Are Dangerous. Nazis seem to be everywhere these days. I don't mean self-proclaimed neo-Nazis. I'm talking about folks being labeled as Nazis, Hitler, Gestapo, Goering. Take your pick by their political opponents. American politicians from across the ideological spectrum, influential media figures, and ordinary people on social media casually use Holocaust terminology to bash anyone or any policy with which they disagree. The takedown is so common that it's even earned its own term, a reductio ad Hitlerum. This trend is far from new, but it is escalating at a disturbing rate in these increasingly polarized times. The Holocaust has become shorthand for good versus evil. It is the epithet to end all epithets. And the current environment of rapid-fire online communication and viral memes lends itself particularly well to this sort of sloppy analogizing. Worse, it allows it to spread more widely and quickly. The oversimplified approach to complex history is dangerous. When conducted with integrity and rigor, the study of history raises more questions than answers. And as the most extensively documented crime the world has ever seen, the Holocaust offers an unmatched case study in how societies fall apart, in the immutability of human nature, in the dangers of unchecked state power. It is more than European or Jewish history, it is human history. Almost 40 years ago, the United States Congress chartered a Holocaust memorial on the National Mall for precisely this reason. The questions raised by the Holocaust transcend all divides. Neither the political right nor left has a monopoly on exploiting the 6 million Jews murdered in a state-sponsored systemic campaign of genocide to demonize or intimidate their political opponents. Recently, some conservative media figures explicitly likened Parkland, Florida students advocating for tightened gun control to the Hitler Youth operating in the service of shadowy authoritarian conspiracy. This allegation included splicing images of these students onto historical film footage of Nazi rallies, reflecting the ease with which many Americans associate the sound of German shouting with a threat to personal liberties. A state representative in Minnesota joined the online bandwagon in these activities. Perhaps the most popular this year have been the accusations of Nazism or fascism against federal authorities for their treatment of children separated from the parents at the U.S. border with Mexico. Remember, other governments put kids in camps as a typical rallying cry from some immigration advocates. Even a person as well-versed in the tenuous balance between national security and compassion, the former head of the CIA, took to Twitter to criticize federal policies towards illegal immigrants using a black and white photo of the iconic train tracks leading to the Auschwitz-Birkenau killing center. Nazi comparisons have also been leveled against the federal government in connection with the travel ban on individuals from predominantly Muslim countries. Animal rights proponents have consistently decried what they call the Holocaust on your plate in critiquing today's meat industry. The list goes on. It is all too easy to forget that there are many people still alive for whom the Holocaust is not history. But their life story and that of their families. These are not abstract tragedies on which to win an argument. They carry the painful memories of brutal murder of a cherished baby boy, or the parents arrested and never seen again. As the Holocaust recedes in time, some Americans and Europeans are becoming increasingly casual and disrespectful to the mass murder of millions. More dangerous, today the internet disseminates insensitive or hateful remarks with unprecedented ease and influence. Online discussions tend to encourage extreme opinions. They allow people to live in echo chambers of their own ideologies and peers. Weimar Germany, the period between the First World War and the Nazi rise to power, is an exemplar of the threats that emerge when the political center fails to hold, when social trust is allowed to erode and fissures exploited. Quality Holocaust education may have the potential to bridge some of the divides our nation is experiencing. It enables people to pause, to step away from the problems and debates of the present, to be challenged by this catastrophic event of the past. That is what good history education does. It doesn't preach, it teaches. It engages at a personal level. It promotes self-reflection and critical thinking about the world and one's own roles and responsibilities. The engagement is lost when we resort to grossly simplified Holocaust analogies, and it demeans the memory of the dead. Writing in 1953, the British novelist L.P. Hartley said, "The past is a foreign country. They do things differently there." Comparing and categorizing are natural human impulses. We all use categories and analogies to navigate through life. But the nature of Nazi crimes demands that we study the evidence, alert ourselves to warning signs, wrestle with the world's moral failure. When we reduce it to a flattened morality tale, we forfeit the chance to learn from its horrific specificity. We lose sight of the ordinary human choices that made genocide possible. Careless Holocaust analogies may demonize, demean, and intimidate their targets, but there is a cost for all of us because they distract from the real issues challenging our society, because they shut down productive, thoughtful discourse. At a time when our country needs more dialogue than ever, it is especially dangerous to exploit the memory of the Holocaust as a rhetorical cudgel. We owe the survivors more than that. We owe ourselves more than that. I'm perfectly fine with being called Marxist and a communist and all of those things, but can we please not fix our mouths to try to make Nazi comparisons fit local appointed officials and issues, so much so that Jewish members of the board feel the need to get up and walk out of the room? There's a line. It'd be great not to cross it. I love public comment. I sit and I listen to all of it, and I try to pay attention to every single person. That's beyond the pale, and it's reprehensible.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Champaign County Board, through the ARPA allocation, set aside some money for Veterans Stop the Violence program. And the first conference, Stop the Violence Healing Invisible Wounds Conference, is Saturday, December 2nd, from 9 a.m. to 1:30. The ad says, "Join us for groundbreaking conference shedding light on trauma's effects on veterans and their families. This event marks the launch of the Stop the Violence program in Champaign County. We will focus on the effects of PTSD on veterans, trauma, and trauma-informed care. This is for veterans and community stakeholders. Child care and transportation will be provided for veterans, and that is Saturday, December 2nd, from 9 to 1:30 p.m. at the Rantoul Business Center in Rantoul, Illinois."
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from October 19th, 2023? Eric, motion, second by Jennifer. Jennifer Straub. Get the right Jenny. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, summary actions were taken at Highway Transportation Committee. Highway and Transportation. Still dropping the ball. I'm sorry, let's move to 10A, which was not on the agenda. Is it 10? Well, 10B. All right, we'll call it 10A1 then. I don't know. Anyway, adoption of resolution honoring retired county board member Jim Goss. Can I have a motion? Got a motion? And I got a motion and a second. Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I request
Would
to
you
go
like to
ahead and
read?
read the resolution.
That would be great, Jeff. Would you please
All right.
read it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Resolution 2023-318. It's a resolution honoring retiring County Board member Jim Goss. Over there, Jim Goss. Whereas Jim Goss was sworn in as Champaign County Board member on February 23, 2017, and whereas Jim Goss has served the citizens of Champaign County as a representative of the Champaign County Board District Number 1 from February 23, 2017 until February 29, 2023, and whereas during his tenure as Champaign County Board member, Jim Goss served on the Committee of the Whole for Justice and Social Services, Finance, Policy and Personnel, and Appointments from 2017 to 23. Environment and Land Use Committee from 2017 to 2020, and 2022 to 2023. Also, County Facilities Committee from 2020 to 2022, and the Strategic Planning Committee from 2017 to 2018, and then also the Litigation Committee from 2020 to 2023. And whereas during his tenure as Champaign County Board member, Jim Goss also served in liaison position as a county board representative with the Extension Services Board from 2018 to 2020, the Regional Planning Commission from 2018 to 2022, and the Rural Transit Advisory Group from 2022 and 2023. And whereas during his tenure as Champaign County Board member, Jim Goss also served in a leadership role as the Finance Chair of the Finance Committee from 2018 to 2022 and Vice Chair of that same committee from 2020 to 2023. Whereas the Champaign County Board seeks to publicly recognize the commitment and dedication of Jim Goss, who served the citizens of Champaign County as an elected official for over 6 years. Now therefore be it resolved that the Champaign County Board hereby recognizes the service of Jim Goss and the benefit that service brought to county government. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be presented to Jim Goss in recognition of his years of service to the citizens of Champaign County. Presented, adopted, approved, and recorded this 21st day of November in the year of our Lord 2023.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jim, for your service. Greatly appreciated. All right, moving on. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm sorry, Steve. We already approved the minutes. I just wanted to point out on page 205 on the consent agenda, on page 66 there, it's Board Member Locke offered a motion to approve the consent agenda. On the 19th, she was noted as being absent in the roll call.
Probably that was Lakshin, as these two Jennifers were not here.
Yeah, roll call, she was absent but noted as offering a motion on the consent agenda. That would need to be corrected.
Okay, then would you like to make a motion to amend the minutes, Mike?
Yes.
And a second by Diane. We have a motion and a second to amend the minutes. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is, minutes are amended. Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you for catching that. All right, moving on. Highway and Transportation Committee, summary of action taken November 3rd is in the agenda. County Facilities, summary of action taken November 7th, again in the agenda. And Environment and Land Use Committee, summary of action taken November 9th, received and placed on file. Moving onward, would the ELEC chair like to make the committee's recommendation for item number 1?
All right, item number 1, adoption of ordinance number 2023-16, amending zoning ordinance zoning case 086 AT 23. There's a few things. Well, first, let's get a motion so we can discuss. Second. Motion here. Second. And a second by Jim. So that was
Motion
Excuse me,
by
parliamentary
Aaron, second.
procedure. That's Mr. Summers, the county executive's job.
We have a motion and a second. Aaron, was that a motion that you made or just a point of order on it? All right. Then Kyle Patterson has made the motion. Can I have a second?
Jen Locke.
Jen Locke, thank you. We have a motion and a second.
All right, thank you. A few things of note. We talked about this a lot, a whole lot. It is here tonight for a vote. I wanted to inform you, first of all, that the protests of the Village of St. Joseph and the Village of Mahomet have both been rescinded. A roll call vote is still necessary, so we still need 17 votes to adopt this ordinance. And the purpose of this text amendment is to make the county requirements for wind farms and solar farms consistent with Public Act 102-1123, which imposed less restrictive requirements for certain wind farm and solar farm parameters than the current zoning ordinance. We've talked at length, and I thank everyone who came tonight who talked about this. You are the people who live in the areas that are affected. ZBA voted recommended denial of this, and we voted in ELOC to move it to the full county board regardless, so that it could be voted on here at the full county board. This brings us in compliance with the state law. There is some jeopardy if we're not in compliance. We still have a wind farm ordinance. It's not like we don't have any right now. We have one that is old. But again, the state setbacks and some of the restrictions are overridden, are much more lenient, I would say, than ours. ELOC was working on this before the state stepped in. ZBA was working on this before the state stepped in. Neither of those boards appreciated the state stepping in, but they have. And now that is the state law. So without further ado, this is a roll call vote for 17. A no vote means that we keep the old ordinance and we have some risk. And a yes vote brings us into compliance with the state law. So, Steve?
Is there any further discussion? Go ahead, JJ.
I have some questions for Mr. Hall, if he could address them.
John, could you come up to the mic, please?
Thank you, Mr. Hall. I understand, and forgive me, I know we sat in your office and you explained this very well to me then, and I'm just making sure I understand it. The Village of Mahomet and the Village of St. Joseph both are dropping their protests because we are making a change that they feel helps them. Could you explain what that change is that they asked for that would be in the amended ordinance?
Yeah, the change is adding a prohibited waiver to the ordinance. Currently, we only prohibit waivers for state and federal requirements, but in talking with the mayor of Mahomet, they would appreciate strengthening enforcement, county enforcement of their subdivision authority. And so the change is that if any solar farm lease within a municipal mile and a half triggers the need for subdivision approval, this adds a prohibited variance, and that subdivision approval absolutely needs to be had. There's no way to grant a waiver from that requirement, as there is in the current ordinance.
So the county board would not be, and I'm probably comparing apples to oranges, it wouldn't be a situation like with the Homer Solar Farm where the county board, for lack of a better word, overruled what Homer wanted.
Well, it's
Or
not
is
quite
it-
the same thing.
Okay, if you could
There was not
help
a
me.
subdivision issue at, a subdivision approval at issue in that solar farm, not
Okay.
that I recall. The issue was simply approving a solar farm that close to the village.
Okay. So would the county board be able to waive that at any point? Or is it, no, this is in the ordinance now and that's the way it stands, the county board can't change that without changing the ordinance?
That's correct.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Jeff, do you have a question?
So we discussion, right, so I have a statement.
Excuse me, discussion, further discussion.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I too am lending my voice and joining my voice with the public that spoke tonight. So the Public Act 102-1123, it's amending in part the county code to relax the already established and appropriate and reasonable restrictions to the placement of commercial wind farm and solar energy facilities. That's already in our zoning restrictions. We already have restrictions for the placement of these facilities. However, the state wants to impose a relaxed restriction. So I am going to vote no, and I'm going to vote no for a couple reasons. Number one, the ZBA voted unanimously and voted to not adopt the state law. And the ZBA represents the outlying communities who have a vested interest in how this law is implemented. And number two, I'm opposed to government overreach and its heavy hand of coherence and compliance upon the rural residents. So that state encroachment on local property rights and zoning control is contrary to the consent of the governed. As such, that is the people in the townships that are represented. So local government works best because they're closer to the people that they represent. We should honor the people that we represent rather than following mandates of the state. So for that reason, I am going to vote no on this resolution.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Thank you. I'm going to vote no tonight, and one of the reasons is I'm not convinced personally that if this should pass, we still won't have lawsuits. The reasoning being, we have in this ordinance before us tonight, it has some restrictions that the state doesn't mention. Well, there's two thoughts to that. The state law says that it shall not be more restrictive than the state. So there are two different thoughts on that. One is that, well, the state didn't mention like sound, so we can put restrictions on it at the county. But the other thought is, well, it still says shall not be more restrictive. If you're restricting a wind farm, putting restrictions on them based on sound, that is more restrictive than the state law. So who's to say we aren't opening ourselves up to lawsuits based on that? There's many other reasons I'm voting no, but those have largely been expressed before and by all the people here tonight and Mr. Farney and everything. We've heard them all before, but that's one particular issue that I'm not convinced that we aren't going to have lawsuits anyway. No, I guess if what was before us and if it would pass was the basic bare minimum to meet the state's law to bring us in compliance with, well then, okay, yeah, we wouldn't have any potential for lawsuits from that aspect then, because it would be the bare minimum, it would meet the state compliance, and how can they sue us? But whether or not it's two sides of the same coin, I guess. The way I can see it, we can have lawsuits over this. It's not cut and dry, in my opinion, and why they can launch a lawsuit basically because of that. There's no doubt in my mind. Whether it would go anywhere in the court, I don't know. I don't think anybody here could truly say where it would go in the court. So that's one reason that I say and am not going to support this tonight. Again, I think we can still have lawsuits should this pass tonight.
Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, I'm kind of new to all this. I wasn't a part of the conversation, so what I did to ground myself was I went back to 55 ILCS 5/5 12020, which established the state law. There are 6 things that the county cannot do, which is essentially say anything about restricting the use of wind and solar farms, but the county may require vegetation screening, consider results from IDNR and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, adhere to IDNR policies, demonstrate avoidance of IDNR land, consider IDNR setbacks, consider consultation evidence with the Illinois Historic Preservation and maintain ground cover for wildlife habitat. All those sound great things, but that's what this county board is reduced to in the state law. This was the land of Lincoln. Lincoln said in his Gettysburg Address, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. This is a government of the people, by legislators, for special interest group. The people are not represented, and that's what I was appointed. I was not elected. I was appointed. We need to represent those people. There is no liberty and justice for all in this state law.
Further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Thorsland.
Yes.
Finish there or not.
Yes.
Wilson.
No.
Carter.
Yes.
Esri.
No.
Farney.
No.
Furtado. Hanauer Friedman.
Yes.
Ingram. Locke.
Yes.
Lockshin.
Yes.
Michaels.
No.
Pugh.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Sexton. No. Smith. No. Storr.
Yes.
Straub.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes.
There are only 15 yea votes, so the motion fails. Moving on, would the elect chair like to make the committee's recommendation for item number 2?
I'd actually put item 2 and 3 together. This may look like a typo and a duplication, but it's actually 2 parts of a solar farm, a part 1 and a part 2, so it's 2 different cases. They are very similar, except for some of the various small conditions, so if the board is okay with making an omnibus of these, I don't see any objections. Then I'm going to read both together. Item number 2, adoption of ordinance number 2023-17, granting a special use permit zoning case 099S23, Champaign Solar 1, PV solar farm, including the decommissioning and site reclamation plan. And item 3, adoption of ordinance number 2023-18, granting a special use permit zoning case 100S23, Champaign Solar 1B PV solar farm, including the decommissioning and site reclamation plan.
Can I have a motion? Okay, I have a motion from Taylor, second from Patterson. Discussion. Mr. Farney.
As Mr. Thorsland said, these seem to be very similar projects, even maybe right next to each other. Was there a reason given as to why they're being done as community solar when they're together? Or is it, or should it have been considered as a larger project?
The representative from the solar farm couldn't make it here tonight. John's probably better to answer this question if he wants to. But I believe they fall under the community solar. And the 2 projects were broken because of the difference in some of the details in waivers and some setbacks. But John may want to elaborate. That's up to John. So.
Further discussion.
I was going to say, I wasn't opposed to it. I was just wondering why that was being done this way. So that's all.
Sorry for cutting you off, JJ. Any further discussion? Mr. Smith, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a clarifying question on the ELUC on page 76. It lists 3 waivers, but yet on page 83, there's only 2 listed for the zoning case 100-Sierra-23. I was wondering what happened to the other waiver, which specifically was the waiver for a separation distance of 10 feet between the inverters and the perimeter fence in lieu of the required 275 feet.
That's because they're two different cases, and the one waiver probably wasn't required for the second one.
I'm sorry, sir, but they both have the 100S-23 on the top of them. They're the same case.
Okay, is that a typo? I don't know.
76 is 100S-23, 83 is the same zoning case.
Okay, because when I look at page 79, I have 099S23.
76 and 83.
Yeah, I'm looking at 76.
76 has a Part A, B, C. Page 83 has just Part A and B.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. John, do you know why that is? Is that a typo or a cut and paste? Or are we missing a part on 99?
I don't have a complete agenda in front of me. What is page 76?
It does appear on page 79.
The best, to my recollection, Mr. Smith, that's a typo on page 76, because I don't remember this fence issue coming up on case 100. I clearly remember it on case 99. So I apologize for that. I think that's a typo on 76.
Is there further discussion? Mr. Wilson?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. A couple items. Were there any objections from anyone in the Pasodum Township regarding this solar project?
No.
And a couple more questions then. And it may be I just missed this, which the other day I lost my phone, but I really didn't lose my phone. I left it at home. Had a whole bunch of people looking for my phone, and there it was at home anyway. So I have a tendency to miss a few things. But my question is, John, regarding the power grid interconnection. And I was looking for the verification that a utility interconnection application was actually applied for, and that the solar farm is actually in the queue to acquire an interconnection agreement. Is that true? Do they have it or not?
We don't require proof of that internet connection agreement until we sign off on the compliance certificate, so I can't say.
So I'm misunderstanding section 6.1.3. Schedule of standard conditions for specific types of special uses continued, and then the requirement in 6.1.5, point B, 3B, about prior, that it has to be in the queue already. Different than saying you already have the connection, but you have to be in the queue in the first place.
Okay, could you give me that reference again?
Yeah,
so
I'm
I can
sorry, I read
that?
too fast, no worries. I'm learning also. So this is in section 6.13, I think, and I'm referring to section 6.1.5, point B, parentheses 3, little b, the PV solar farm special use permit application shall include documentation that the applicant for PV solar farm is in the queue to acquire an interconnection agreement to the power grid.
It's
not a requirement?
It is a requirement because we have to know that they in fact have approval for interconnection at that point. In fact, many times, the Homer solar farm was a case in point. The question came up, well, can't you relocate the interconnection? And the justification was no. We've been in the queue for a long time for the location at that point, and we can't change it.
So the two places in Pasodum are already in the queue, you're saying?
Yes. That's our understanding.
I just didn't see that in writing. Is that a fact or an understanding?
Well, that would have been part of the application. I don't have the application here with me tonight, but that's my understanding.
Okay.
But we will get proof of that
It'd be
before.
nice to have it because it's a requirement, that's all.
Yeah,
I don't have the application in front of me either. I don't. I trust the people that did it, but I don't have it in front of me. All right, then one other item I thought was peculiar, and I don't understand why. Maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't. I don't understand the electrical inverters. It says shall be located as far as possible from property lines and adjacent dwellings consistent with good engineering practice. Inverter locations that are less than 275 feet from the perimeter fence shall require specific approval and may require special sound deadening construction and noise analysis. It seems to me to grant a waiver for 42 feet in lieu of 275 feet is a substantial, gracious waiver. So how do we get to 42 feet rather than 275, and why is that justifiable?
okay, that separation is a key to minimizing the noise impact on neighboring residences. The closest residence to this solar farm is 1,000 feet away. They're one of the participating landowners, and they've signed off on a waiver, but noise is just not an issue at this solar farm.
So if they're 1,000 feet away, why don't they just stick with the 275 feet then?
Well, in this case, the inverters were put next to the railroad tracks. Part of the logic there is that if you're next to a railroad track, the noise of the inverters compared to the noise of the railroad is, very minimal. And so that's one reason why that was justified.
Okay. That's the end of my comments. Thank you.
All right, this item is going to recall, I'm sorry, go ahead, Diane.
Just real quick, clarification here. So what we, go back to the solar farm, the ordinance and whatnot, in my mind, what we're doing is the minutes from the November 9th board meeting will be corrected for the file because that lists 3 items, but the resolution that we have is correct? Is that what we're saying? So we know what we're voting on? Yeah. Okay.
Seeing no further discussion, this item requires a roll call and 12 affirmative votes. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Thorsland.
Yes.
Finish Theorenot.
Yes.
Wilson.
No.
Carter.
Yes.
Esri.
No.
Farney.
Yes.
Furtado. Hanauer Friedman.
Yes.
Ingram.
Yes.
Locke.
Yes.
Lockshin.
Yes.
Michaels.
Yes.
Pugh.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Sexton.
Yes.
Smith.
No.
Storr.
Yes.
Straub.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, summary of action taken at the November 14th Committee of the Whole meeting is received and placed on file. Would the Finance Chair like to make the committee's recommendation for item number 1?
I would adoption of ordinance number 202319, FY 2024 annual tax levy ordinance, Champaign County, Illinois. Sorry.
Have a motion. First motion by Diane, second by Leah Taylor. We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor signify by, oh, sorry, this also requires a roll call. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Thorsland.
Yes.
Finish Theorenot.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Cowart. Esri.
Yes.
Farney.
Yes.
Furtado.
Yes.
Hanauer Friedman.
Yes.
Ingram.
Yes.
Locke.
Yes.
Lockshin.
Yes.
Michaels.
Yes.
Pugh.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Sexton. Smith.
Yes.
Storr.
Yes.
Straub.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes.
Motion passes. Stephanie, would you like to make the recommendation for item number 2, please?
Adoption of ordinance number 202320, FY 2024 annual budget and appropriation ordinance.
Motion by Ingram, second by Lockshin. Discussion. Ms. Furtado.
Just as finance chair, I wanted to thank everybody who was involved in putting this budget together and the hard work that it took to get us here. And also just thank you to my fellow board members. I think that this was the most complex budget that we had to sort of figure out since I've been on the board, except for maybe that first ARPA year. So it was a complicated budget. I think we got to a decent place to do the best that we could serve the residents of our county under the revenue that we currently have. So I thank everybody on the board and for the just lot of time that y'all put into it.
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Thorsland.
Yes.
Vantage Thiernot.
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Esri.
Yes.
Varney.
Yes.
Furtado. Hanauer Friedman.
Yes.
Ingram. Locke.
Yes.
Lockshin.
Yes.
Michaels.
Yes.
Pugh.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Sexton. Smith. Storr.
Yes.
Straub.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on, policy, personnel, and appointments. Would the policy chair like to make the committee's recommendation for item number 1?
Yes, thank you. Adoption of resolution number 2023-312, appointing Cynthia Cunningham to the Zoning Board of Appeals, term January 1st, 2023 through November 30th, 2028.
Can I have a motion? All right, so moved. Samantha, second by Jennifer Straub. Discussion. Diane, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I would like to postpone all these appointments for at least 30 days due to the constituent comments and concern that we've had tonight. I also believe that the current board members would continue to serve until new members are appointed or according to the items in their bylaws.
All right, we have a motion and a second to postpone for 30 days. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Thorsland.
No.
Vantage Thiernot.
No.
Wilson.
Yes.
Carter.
No.
Yes.
Barney.
Yes.
Furtado.
Yes. I'm sorry, no.
Hanauer Friedman.
No.
Ingram. Locke.
No.
Lockshin.
No.
Michaels. Pugh.
No.
Rogers.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Sexton. Smith.
Yes.
Storr.
No.
Straub.
No.
Taylor.
No.
Patterson.
No.
Motion fails. All right, all those in favor, please signify.
We're still in discussion, right?
If there is further discussion, go ahead. Mr. Farney.
So tonight we heard from many constituents, almost all of them from the district that I represent with Mr. Esri. One of the board members being replaced unjustly, I agree with everyone that spoke tonight, lives in my district. I represent him. I've known him for decades. I learned how to shoot a shotgun on his parents' farm. I have ties to the people that are represented, both being on the ZBA and the people that go and talk to the ZBA. The ZBA doesn't have a time limit on their discussion, unlike this board. People that come to the ZBA present the full story. The ZBA does their job. The vote we just took on postponing these appointments, it shows me everything I need to know about this board. The majority party on this board, the people that invented the resist t-shirt, now should be holding comply signs. I cannot believe that the bastion of liberal politics, the Champaign County Democrats, are now telling us, you will comply. This is payback for not complying. Out in the rural areas, we are tired of being lectured over and over and over by our urban counterparts. It happens virtually every month in this boardroom. It happens at the ELUC committee. We're tired of it. Later in this meeting, county administration is going to talk to this board about potential revenue options. And we're going to need all hands on board. Why should anyone in the rural areas want to support additional revenue for this government that does not listen to them? Shows utter disdain at some times. I've seen it. I went back and watched every one of the ELUC meetings and these board meetings. When the Village of Homer was here, you said, go to hell. There's 6 people on this board that represent the rural areas, and they do a really, really good job at it. And they get shot down every time they stand up for the people they represent. So tonight, we might be heading towards a lawsuit. Great. If it takes money away from county services that we're already not getting out in the rural areas, so be it. There's 4 deputies that patrol rural Champaign County. Boy, I feel good paying my property taxes to get 4 deputies. We have a public health department that disregards anything folks in the rural areas say. We're at the bottom of the list for having our restaurants inspected. But by God, they've got time to go and shut down a high school football concession stand because they have a wrong refrigerator out there in the snack shack. We're tired of it. If you want to pass new revenue in this county, you need help from everyone. Not once during the debate over the zoning ordinance that just failed did anyone attempt to reach out with compromise or how can we bring you on. It was, you will comply. Telling us that you will comply does not work. The ZBA did their job, and they did it well. I'll be in opposition to all 3 of these appointments because they do not need replaced. They need to be commended for listening to their constituents. And so when I go out to get my additional petition signatures to get on the ballot, and I keep hearing from my constituents that we're doing the right thing in our district, it makes me feel good knowing that I'm doing what they asked for. And if that's what I have to do, that's what I do. Because they're the people that I represent. Thank you.
Further discussion? Go ahead. Emily, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to start by saying that I serve on ELUC. So it's interesting to me to hear, I guess, this decision being recounted by former county board members and current county board members in the way that they have. I do want to note, serving on ELUC, nobody contacted me to persuade or sway me on this issue from the other side. And despite that, and I want to correct Mr. Farney here, I did vote with you guys on the Homer issue. And I don't think that there's one of you who would say that I'm unpersuadable. I voted with Republicans, at least on a few important votes. So it's as somebody who is persuadable, it's a lot of gall, to be honest, and to hear that from the other side and ask, to pretend, I guess, that a conversation does not exist, because it does. So I would have welcomed a conversation, again, as somebody who sits on ELUC. And I also just want to note, as a pivot, like hearing the commentary, especially in public comment, from people who live in this area and who care about this issue, I agree. I think it's a valid point. Where I struggle is that the decision before me is not, I have 3 names in front of me. There are no alternatives. The ability to appoint is in the authority of the county executive. That's not my choice. I get to vote yes or no. So I don't know. I hope that, and again, I really have to divide the public comment that I received from, or that we received from actual, like from residents, non-county board members from this. It's not helpful to ratchet up and really extinguish any, not only to not allow any persuasion to take place, but then also just to like throw cold water on insult. Like it's jaw-dropping, to be honest. But again, I really have to exclude public comment from that. So that's my thought on where I am now.
Further discussion. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman. I enjoyed listening to the public comment because I learned a lot. And how the public was addressing their concerns about the ZBA members. Frankly, my experience, I have 0 rural experience. I live in Mahomet, but I live in the town of Mahomet. I have a professional engineering degree. I work on nuclear power plants. I work on 4th-generation nuclear reactors. I have really no clue what it's like to be a farmer. I grew up in San Jose, went to San Francisco a lot. I was on a nuclear submarine, a couple thousand feet underwater. I have no idea what it's like to be a farmer. But I can respect and listen to their perspective, even though I don't even have a scintilla of experience. Other than one time when I was in Idaho trying to get a job at an engineering firm and I couldn't get the job, so I ended up digging ditches in the field in a potato patch. Let me tell you, that is hard work. Digging ditches in a potato patch, dear Lord, that was tough. It's not that hard going to school, getting an advanced degree, working on a submarine, doing all that stuff. But working on a farm, I absolutely have to admire the practical skills it takes to do that. So because of that, I really do support. And although it's not on the, like you said, Emily, a vote, but my understanding when we first talked about setting the agenda for the Personnel and Policy Committee, and it was probably just due to my ignorance because I'm not an experienced politician, at least not yet. I thought all 6 people would have been on that agenda to discuss, but when I was absolutely surprised when I got to the Cal meeting, there was only 3 names instead of 6. So my mistake for not understanding the process. So that's my bad. But anyway, I fully support the rural district and their choice. So these three members that were on the ZBA, that spent their 5 years on the ZBA and the hours and hours, I spent hours on this. I can't imagine spending all the hours on the ZBA stuff. I just would go crazy, I think. But anyway, I think it's really disrespectful for us. And I understand the argument on the other side. I understand the argument of the potential noncompliance with the state. I understand that fully. But my heart, I support the ZBA as it was with those particular members. And I support their continuance on that board. So that is why I'm going to vote no for all three of these positions. Whether my vote means anything, well, it means anything, I did vote, so it means that. But that's why I'm voting no. I'm not voting no because of a partisan feeling. I'm voting no because I'm trying to understand, and this is how I understand it. And because of that reason, I'm voting for no for these three appointments. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. No. Motion carries. Policy Chair, please make committee's recommendation for item number 2.
Thank you. Adoption of resolution number 2023-313, appointing Chris Flesner to the Zoning Board of Appeals, term December 1st, 2023 through November 30th, 2028.
I have a motion. Motion from Benish Thurnott, second. Second from Lakshan. Motion and a second. Discussion. Go ahead, Diane.
Just coupling on the rest of this, I want to make it very clear that it has nothing to do with the person that's been nominated. It has everything to do with changing all the positions. And because there are good people here, and there are good people that are willing to serve, but I feel that the board, as it has been, and several of the people that were on the board did fill out an application. Many times we renew people that have been on the board before. So please, I will be voting no. I had voted no on the last one. It has nothing to do with the person itself. It has everything to do with the position and maintaining the information and the historical ability to make those decisions and bring them to the board, which are the people that vote, quite frankly. This is the bottom line here. But it is not a personal issue that I will be voting no and had voted no on the last.
Further discussion. Go ahead, Leah.
Thank you. I meant to say this on the last one, but this one is just as fine as well because we're all going to vote how we vote. Going back to kind of what Emily was saying is that this, we all know this isn't our choice as a board, right? I mean, we can vote no, we can vote yes, but ultimately these appointments come down to the county executive. Our job, I guess you could say, is to decide whether or not they are suitable or unsuitable, not whether or not we like what he's doing or anything like that. These are all three candidates are all residents in the rural areas. They're all very active, involved people. I'm going to support the county executive's decision on this because it is not my decision to make. My decision is to support or not to support. That's it.
Further discussion. Just as a point of information before we vote, I would like to remind all members of the board that my process as executive has been to meet with both the chair and vice chair, or at least have discussion with the chair and vice chair of policy, personnel, and appointments to get their information and guidance before I bring anything to the board. It is my decision to make, but I do seek guidance from the board prior to bringing it to the board to vote on. Having said that, all in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. No. Motion carries. Chris, will you please make the committee's recommendation for item number 3?
Thank you. Adoption of resolution number 2023-314, appointing Brian Anderson to the Zoning Board of Appeals, term December 1st, 2023 through November 30th, 2028.
Got a motion by Samantha, second. Second by Jen Locke. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. No. Motion carries. Thank you. Going on to new business. If there's no objection, may I get an omnibus motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 2023-315, authorizing payment of claims, and adoption of Resolution number 2023-316, approving purchases not following purchasing policy. Can I get a motion? Motion by Vanish Theranot, second Rogers. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, can I get a motion to approve the adoption of resolution number 2023-317 for 2024 services from State's Attorney Appellate Prosecutor? Can I have a motion? Motion from Locke, second from Taylor. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Can I get, if there's no objection, can I get an omnibus motion to approve the adoption of resolution 2023-319 designating the 2024 holiday calendar and adoption of resolution 2023-320 designating the 2024 Champaign County Board calendar of meetings? So moved by Samantha, second by Ed. Discussion. Go ahead.
I didn't catch this, but I forget who caught this. One of the meetings is on Election Day, on the calendar.
Facilities is November.
Yeah, facilities is on Election Day in November.
And I think the consensus was that that gets kicked to the Wednesday, the next day. I think that's what happened in the past.
Thank you for catching that. Can we?
All goes to the JL number, well, Jenny number, well, I'm not going to number you guys.
All right. Can I get a motion from the board to amend the board calendar of meetings? Okay, again, Locke and Vanish Theranot. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Eric, thank you for that catch. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Locke. All right, this is an omnibus motion. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Go ahead, Ms. Furtado.
Just on the county board calendar of meetings, I'd like to request that in the second half of the 2024 calendar, that we use one of this, whatever it's called, study sessions, in order to kick off a conversation about domestic violence in our county. I think that eventually I'd like to see us put that on a special committee, but I think a conversation where the whole board is here, where we could get some data points from the sheriff's office and the rate of incarceration around that issue. It's an endemic in our county that, both has mental, physical, and emotional toll on people, but also just an actual cost on our county. It's by far the driver in our carceral system, and I think we need to come up with a plan to start addressing it. So in the second half of the year, I'd like to request that one of those special topics meetings be set aside so that we can begin that conversation.
Do you want to set aside a specific date, or you just want to?
No, not at this
okay.
time, just
All right.
in the second half of the year.
That's fine. I will work with the board to make sure that we have that established. All right. All in favor of adopting this resolution on our calendar, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the adoption of resolution number 2023-321, approving intergovernmental agreement between the City of Champaign, City of Urbana, and the Champaign County for the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program that will give us very little money? All right, we have a motion from Samantha, second from Taylor. Is there any discussion? Go ahead, Ms. Taylor.
thank you. In section 2, Dr. Furtado during our caucus tonight pointed out that it says Exhibit A when it should say Exhibit 1. Or Exhibit 1 on the next page should say Exhibit A. Either of those changes would be amenable. This is page 129 of your packet.
Would you like to place that in the form of a motion then?
I would like to, should I make a friendly amendment?
All right.
I would like to make a friendly amendment to the motion to
Okay.
replace the word Exhibit A in section 2 to be Exhibit 1.
Is there a second to that? Ms. Straub, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of this friendly amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving this resolution, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Would the Labor Committee Chair like to make the committee's recommendation for item number 1? Emily, please. I'll go ahead and read the resolution. That's fine.
I move for the adoption of item A1, the adoption, I'm sorry, scrambled here. I move to adopt the resolution number 2023-322, approving the agreement between the Champaign County Board, the Sheriff of Champaign County, the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police, Corrections Sergeants Division, dated January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2025.
We have a motion. So moved by Aaron, second by Emily made the motion, second by Aaron Esri. All right. Any discussion? I'm glad we finally got this settled. Yes. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Do we have any discussion or questions regarding the sheriff's memo on the inmate phone visitation system? The sheriff is here. Or do we just want to bring him up to say thank you?
Have him join us. He stayed here all day.
Thank you, Dustin, for waiting. Questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff, for being here. Thank you for your service to the county. So, so what's changed? What's different?
As far as the phone contract
Yes.
itself? Well, I would say a general overall, we had 7 proposals, which if you've ever gone through an RFP process for inmate telephones, which probably nobody except for 3 of us in this room have, very complicated and very interesting trying to compare apples to apples. I would say the majority, the main thing that happened, and it kind of shocked me, was the company that we selected is going to provide 2 free phone calls per day per inmate at no charge to the county and no charge to the inmate and family. And so I was very surprised that a company would do that, but they did, and they still managed to provide the same investigative, safety and security features that we were looking for, as well as cost-effective rates for both telephone and for video. And I just also want to point out that the remote video visitation is 20 cents per minute, which is less than what inmates are currently paying. But we always have the option to come to the jail and to speak to inmates via video visitation, and that is at no cost. And so we were able to keep all of the good things with our current phone contract. It's a little inconvenient to have to change providers during a jail renovation. However, this was the best overall option for us, and I believe it's going to do great things for the county.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Go ahead, Jenny.
I just want to thank you for all the work that went into this. Thank Dr. Furtado and Jen Straub for serving on the task force to help address the county needs and work it so that we were able to get free phone calls for people incarcerated at no charge to the county and no charge to them. I'm just kind of blown away that that worked the way it did. You got some great proposals, and I'm just so happy that this worked out. Thank you so much for all the extra work that went into that. And thank you, both of you and Executive Summers, for all the work.
Just glad we were able to get something that will provide some assistance in terms of the financial point for our folks in our correctional system. Go ahead, Samantha.
Thank you, County Executive. I do, too, want to echo my county board member. Very thankful that this means a lot, because so often I think people don't see the struggles with family members of incarcerated loved ones. And this is going to really help alleviate some headache that is caused to that family with that loved one being incarcerated. So I'm thankful for everyone that advocated. I was able to speak with so many people concerning this issue, and my heart is really smiling that this is definitely going to happen, you know, so I'm thankful. Thank you all.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Yeah, I wanted to personally thank the sheriff. I think we see this on the agenda, and the tremendous amount of work it took to get us here it was dozens of conversations with vendors, proposals that were 130 pages long, that were very hard to compare to each other, because it was very like, if you do this, then this, if you decide that, you know what I mean? And so wading through of all of that, the work that he put into it, the responsiveness and the quickness of your responsiveness to community concerns, the team that you put together on this was incredible. You frankly didn't have to do all of this. You have the authority to let this contract. You didn't even have to come tonight to talk to us about it if you didn't want to. The collaborative way that you worked with the board is deeply appreciated, and the work you put into it was seen and appreciated. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Jen.
Just wanted to echo my thanks. I really appreciated the process and learning a little bit about an incredibly complicated situation. And thank you to there's a lot of doctors here, to Captain Vogus for her help, and also the rest of your staff. I think this is gonna count for like 6 months for me as a win. So thank you very much.
Anyone else? Dustin, thank you for waiting through this very lengthy meeting. I appreciate your time. All right, next up we have a discussion point for Broadband Task Force. I'm happy to report that we are very close to actually having signed agreements with both of our providers. I did get a chance to speak with Bailey with the Farm Bureau today. She feels like she's making good progress in terms of getting easements, and we need to have some further discussion with her about the possibility of providing some additional assistance to make things go just a little bit faster.
What?
Go ahead, Chris.
Who will be those providers, please?
Volo and Nextlink are the two companies that we've retained.
Okay.
We've been working with them for an inordinately long time, waiting to get signed contracts, and we are finally almost there. We have a deadline for them, and they want the work, so I think we'll be able to have those by the end of the month. Kyle?
I also want to point out that we currently have, I believe, 2 county board vacancies on the task force. They're both Republican seats. So obviously at some point the task force is going to meet again. So we'll need to make those appointments. So I guess the Republican caucus could have conversation about which 2 individuals like to fill that role. That'd be perfect.
We'll wait forward to hear from the Republican caucus on that. Okay, Michelle has a quick presentation with regard to increased revenue options. the hour is late, so let's keep it. Okay, Stephanie, go ahead.
I think when we put this on the agenda, and this is, the board wanted to hear more about PTEL and public safety sales tax, we didn't anticipate the length of the meeting. It's 9 o'clock, it's discussion only. I feel really strongly that we need Mr. Farney here for that conversation as Deputy Finance Chair. There's nothing that says we need to get into this tonight. If it's okay with the board, and the same thing with the new county seal, I think it's an important decision. It might seem cosmetic, but I actually think it's an important decision that we should make maybe when we're not all exhausted. If folks are cool, we could, I mean, we just discussed it, so we discussed it, but we can continue the conversation maybe when we have an agenda that isn't passing 47 things that are, including our budget, that's really complicated. So with that, if that's okay with everybody, could we maybe postpone those to a time when maybe our brains are a little bit more brainy?
Can I just have a show of hands of folks that are willing to go ahead and postpone those due to the late hour? All right, that's
We can
pretty clear. All right.
We can also postpone the compensation discussion as well. And
Yeah.
we can do the ARPA update. Kathy's not even here tonight. I can attempt to answer any questions you have, and then we would be done for
And we
the
can
evening.
adjourn.
All my synapses are still functioning 100%, but I'm okay with postponing.
All right. Michelle can answer a few questions with regard to our ARPA. There's information in the packet. Does anybody have any questions, or is it pretty self-explanatory to you? Samantha, you do? Go ahead.
And maybe I'm too early asking this question, but are we seeing any return funds?
So that's a great question. We have a couple of places where we're pretty confident we're going to have return funds, but we're still having conversations to figure out if there's ways that we can help them to be more efficient with spending their money. So I don't have like a dollar amount for you, but I would anticipate by March, we'll be talking in dollar figures and specific programs as to things that need to be adjusted and funds that we need to be thinking quickly about reallocation for.
Thank you.
Stephanie.
Samantha, to your question, myself, Mr. Summers, Michelle, and Kathy from that oversees our ARPA sat down last week and went through every single thing, both internal within the county and external within our government and community partners, and looked at every single one and their status, flagged the ones that we thought were maybe spending too slowly or hadn't gotten off the ground yet. In some cases, if they're in your district, we might be reaching out to you all to help us reach out to them. Maybe some of the smaller villages where we're doing water projects might need some institutional support to help get those started. Some of them need additional funding. So, we need to maybe have that conversation with them. Some of the service sector ones aren't maybe spending their money as quickly as we think they should. And so they have a list, Kathy and them, Michelle, where they're reaching out to those individual people. And then in March, we're going to have a more substantive conversation about it. And by June, we'd be making any decisions if we need to claw back any of those commitments, because we will not be sending any of this money back to the federal government. And then the other thing is, I wanted to say I had an opportunity today to have a really lovely coffee with Madeline from the Chamber of Commerce. And she wanted to let you all know that she believes if it hasn't been granted yet, it's about to, the first sort of microloan for small businesses, and those applications are being processed. And Mr. Storr, she wanted me specifically to let you know that the e-commerce piece is about launch, is really, really, really close, and she's really excited about it. She's going to probably come sometime in the spring to give us a full update, but she wanted to thank the entire board for their support for small business and specifically for the chamber.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Since we're talking ARPA, I think we are, right? Okay, thank you. And I appreciate your conversation. This is my concern. My concern is, and it's a concern, it's just a concern, of after, I don't know, 20, 30 years in project management, I just have this kind of concern. So as of September 30th, only 18% of the 2023 funds have been actually spent. So out of $32.7 million projected, $6 million has actually been spent. Affordable housing, only 8%. Broadband, I guess now I understand why, because the contract's basically 0%. Community violence, which we're all interested in, community violence intervention, only 27% of the funds have been spent for this year. Housing assistance, 0%, and that's only $12,000. Nonprofit organizations, 28% only spent. Small business, which we want to support small business, like everything on here, all items, there's no doubt we want to support, 39%, and then the water infrastructure, too, right, only 28%. So here's my concern. The promises or the commitments made by all the organizations are not, it appears that, have not fulfilled their obligations. And I'm assuming, Stephanie, that this money pushes to the next year anyway, but I am really concerned that, is there some tighter controls that we can use, exercise, so that the well-appropriated funds that we all agreed to spend is actually spent?
I could speak to that. I think it might be, to some degree, the nomenclature of the chart that is raising your concerns. So, for example, in order for us to let an IGA a contract, we need the full amount of money, right? So to give you an example, and we can have a disagreement about how this acronym should be pronounced, we gave money to Macy, right? All of that money is in 2023. We know that, and it has to be in 2023 for us to exercise that agreement with Macy. That doesn't mean that we ever thought it would all get spent in 2023. It will be spent. We didn't even make that decision until halfway through this year. I'm not even sure if we finalized the contract with them. I know the last time I talked, right, so that it is.
For Macy, I know you're almost so close, but
right.
not quite.
So the thing is just because the money is in 2023, that doesn't mean that we intended to spend it all in 2023. Sometimes it'll be spent in 2024, sometimes it'll be spent in 2025, right? There is one, though, that you said on the list that I can say is a clawback, and I forgot about this to Samantha's question. The $12,000 for housing assistance was specifically to pay off sewer bills. Everybody else that we gave the money to spent it, except for the Sangamon Valley Sewer Group, and they're not going to. They've told us they didn't pay off the sewer bills and they're not going to. So that $12,000 will be coming back to us and will be part of what we have to make a decision for. So for whatever reason, they just decided not to do what they had asked the money for. But the rest of those, all of the projects are in various states of progress. But 2023 is like when we allocated the money to those different projects. In the case of broadband, we full well know it'll go all the way to 2026. The other projects will fall off. For example, the cover crop project that we're doing with the Farm Bureau ends in 2024. Macy goes through 2025. You know what I mean? Like all of them have different end dates. So the percentage that should be spent by this time, it would vary by project. There are some where, as I said before, we do have some concern about how expeditiously they're going through the process, and those we flagged and we're having conversations with them. If it rises to the level of we think we need to take action, we'll bring that before the board this spring so that we have enough time to turn around and spend the money elsewhere.
Follow up on that. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you very much. So my follow-up on this is then, and I agree with you, then I would maybe just more of attention to detail. If there's, then show it on the spreadsheet that you're spending money in 24 and 25 instead of leaving it blank. It's an attention to detail item, but if there's not all spent in 23, I'm okay with that. Just show it what you're planning on 24 and 25 or 26.
Jenny, go ahead.
Just a point on that. We've had meetings about this where we've discussed, oh, yeah, we know they're not going to spend the money until X date. Like, I feel like that's something that we've all heard throughout this whole process, like from the beginning. I wouldn't expect, I mean, I don't know. I feel like that was something that we all understood, and I'm sorry if that was unclear.
Emily?
I just want to echo Ms. Furtado's suggestion that we delay this to another meeting. Again, we're all afraid, and I understand we're asking kind of last-minute questions here, but I just want to make sure that suggestion is at the front of everyone's minds.
Jeff, you're all right waiting until Kathy returns next month, or you could reach out to her when she returns? Is that all right? Okay, before we adjourn, I want to give the floor to Mike Ingram for just a few minutes. Mike.
I swear I'll make it quick. I just wanted to let everybody know after the meeting I'll be handing my resignation into Chair Patterson. So this was my last county board meeting. Thank you everybody for all the time spent. I often will say that the school board is the hardest elected position because you have to serve constituents who can't vote for you, but like a close second is your councils and your county boards. These can be grueling, as we have just sat through a very long meeting, of course, with lots of passionate folks coming in. I'll echo earlier what I said is that I actually, even when public participation is very one-sided or people are unhappy with me, I really like public participation, and I'm glad that we never took up the idea of putting it at the back of the meeting like some boards do, and I will advocate that we never do that, or that you never do that, sorry. But yes, even folks that I like vehemently disagree with on boards, I still appreciate their service. You have to really care to do this stuff and to continue to show up and sometimes sit through comments where people are making the most glaring and awful historical revisionism comparisons that you've ever heard. But often they're not nearly that bad. So anyway, I will be moving on. I'm moving at some point. I don't know when, but that's a backseat to the fact that I have somebody who's super interested in taking this seat, who I think is wonderful and who happens to be in the room, and who used to work at the Champaign County Nursing Home. And her name is Carolyn, and she's sitting over there. And I think she's going to be a great board member, assuming that the County Central Committee and the County Board so chooses. Of course, anybody can apply to that vacancy, but I was really excited to find somebody who is interested in filling this seat, and I think she'll be wonderful if she is chosen. And I just want to thank all of you, and I hope I see you around.
Thank you, Mike. You will be missed. Seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, folks.